Good morning, everyone. My name is Slemons, and today I will be discussing how the mental aspect of injuries affects athletes. So why I wanted to research this is because I'm actually going to be going to grad school for sports psychology. I'm going to be gaining a master's in that and potentially a PhD after the 2 years I obtain my master's. I'm also an athletic training major here at Mount Union with a double minor in exercise science and psychology. So I work a lot with the athletes and see them from the start of their injury to return to play. And a lot of them physically are 100% capable to return to play, but some of them mentally are not, and I wanted to study why that happens. So what are the mental aspects that affect injuries? There are multiple, however, I'm going to discuss depression, stress, anxiety, which can be categorized into panic disorder, phobia, and OCD, and that all comes from Bali's 2015 article. Also, there's a stigma that mental versus physical aspects of sport are 50-50. However, Stankovic in his 2018 article stated that mentally sports are 90% and physically they are 10%. So, what is depression? According to Willanen, depression is a mood disorder that has two main characteristics, dysphoria and anhedonia. Dysphoria is experiencing extreme bouts of sadness, and anhedonia is a lack of happiness and it cannot be changed. So with dysphoria, you can experience extreme bouts of sadness, but over time it can get better, where with anhedonia, you can't change your mood. So you're extremely sad or you are not happy at all. So according to Keating, depression affects athletics because they have a lack of energy, so they don't want to get better, or they have a lack of determination. They will not go through the rehabilitation or do the rehabilitation that is given by the medical staff, which I see sometimes on a daily basis with some of the football players. They will go through a social withdrawal, so they'll not want to go to practice or interact with the team. However, if they do have a season-ending injury, according to the NCAA, they're not allowed to be at practice or any of the sporting events. They will also have a loss of interest, so they'll not care when they'll be back on the field or if they'll ever be back on the field. They'll have a lack of sleep, or they'll sleep too much, and they'll have a lack of appetite, or they will overeat. Overeating the wrong things can slow the healing process in your body because it's actually adding toxins to the body that block chemical mediators needed to help heal the injury. Not eating is also slowing a healing process because there's no nutrients being replenished into your body that's used to help the injury. Next, I'll discuss anxiety. Anxiety is a slow drip of chemical changes in the brain that lasts for a long period of time. It lives in the future, so the what ifs, or the what if this will happen, what if that will happen, and it is seen as avoiding the situation or experience that brings the symptoms forward, and that's according to Capstone in his 2018 article. Anxiety disorders, according to Smith and Associates, can be categorized into panic and panic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and social or specific phobias. So panic or panic disorder is one of the more common ones, and it's where you sweat, you have heavy breathing, you start to get dizzy, and you kind of freak out that you're going to go back out on the field, and what if you get re-injured. Obsessive compulsive disorder is where you have an obsession and you counteract it with the compulsions, so that's what you're doing to override the obsession. So a lot of guys have pregame rituals, and that is actually a form of obsessive compulsive disorder. And social and specific phobias are just something that you're avoiding altogether. So how does anxiety affect athletics? According to Smith and Associates, there is a fear of re-injury after returning to sport. There's a fear of returning to sport altogether. There's a fear of new injuries. So say someone has a low back strain, they have a fear of then hurting their hip or their knee or their ankle or their foot based off of their previous back injury. There's a fear of not being the same athlete they were before the injury. There's a lack of trust from their teammates, or they fear that their teammates will lack their trust. Again, in the OCD realm, there's a pregame routine that must be followed, and if they don't follow it, they have a fear that they're going to lose that game or that match. They have to wear the same exact thing every single game day, or again, they have a fear of losing that game. They must eat the same pregame meal the night before the game, or they have a fear of losing. and they must watch the same movie the night before the game, or they have a fear of losing. I see this a lot with the football team. A couple of our guys have to watch the same movie every single night, or they think that they're going to lose the next game, and if they don't watch that movie, and if we do lose, they feel that it's on them. So that's kind of a form of their anxiety going into the game, whether they have an injury or not. I conducted 2 personal interviews with some of my athletes on the football team. However, their names are removed due to the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. The first interview I conducted was with a quarterback who sustained an ankle injury and sat out 1 game. He is an example of what mentally you should be in athletics. He walked in, and every single day we would ask him how his ankle was feeling, and he said physically he knows he's not ready to go back out onto the field. However, mentally, if you had asked him to go run a 40-yard dash, he said he could run it in 4.3 seconds, when in reality that's not his actual 40-yard dash time. But mentally he felt that he was at that capacity, where physically he knew he was not. The next interview was with one of the Mount Union safeties, and he sustained a shoulder injury last year, an ankle injury, and a hip flexor injury this year. So obviously he has more injuries, but when he comes in and we ask him how his injuries are, he has to say, I have to stretch, I have to do this, I have to heat, this hurts, I know I'm not going to be the person I was prior to this injury, I don't know why, mentally I'm just not there. So obviously they responded very differently to their injuries. Why this happens, no one really knows. It's just the person's mental state of being, and that's something that needs to be further researched, but that then goes into case studies and case reports over multiple years and periods of time. And then in conclusion, why is it important for others to know and consider this? Many people don't look at the mental aspect of injuries, and we see people over and over again, the same people get hurt over and over again, and it's because physically they are 100% ready to return to sport. However, that mental aspect is not there, so if they have a fear of re-injury, they'll be more timid going out and playing, which can cause them to then injure another part of their body or re-injure that same aspect. In my own personal perspective is that I believe mental aspects need to be looked at more. We are returning athletes to sport too soon, and that's why we saw with the Mount Union safety, there's injury after injury after injury, because mentally he's not 100% ready to be back out onto the field. In conclusion, mental illnesses are more prevalent in athletics than most people realize. When an athlete gets hurt, there are many other aspects that medical professionals need to look at other than just the physical injury. Without the mental aspects being examined, the athlete may never return to who they were pre-injury or become who they want to be post-injury.